Council. Ready? Good evening, members of the audience, council, and staff. Let me welcome you to tonight's council meeting. Please join me in standing for the invocation to be given by Mr. Finch.
Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the provisions that you bless us with. We pray as we start this meeting, that you just give us wisdom, decisions that all of our citizens in mind, betterment of our community. Father, we again thank you so much for this town and the fact that you give us the opportunity.
Amen. Please join me standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Please be seated. Good evening once again. At this time, let me call to order the Town Council meeting for Monday, September 13th. For the record, we have all council members except Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen will be absent. With 6 of the 7 being present, we have quorum. So the time is 7:02. The first item is presentations. This is to proclaim or declare September 17th, 2021 through September 23rd, 2021 as Constitution Week in the Town of Sunnyvale. So let me read the proclamation. Whereas September 17, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations that will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Mayor Saji George, do hereby declare and proclaim the week of September 27, 2021 through September 23, 2021 as Constitution Week in the Town of Sunnyvale, and I ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals that framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained, and a witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Town of Sunnyvale to be affixed. This the 13th day of September 2021, Town of Sunnyvale, Saji George, Mayor.
Ms. Thomas is here to accept that.
Good evening, Mr. Thomas. Would you come out to see this for me? Oh, Mrs. Thomas. Okay, next item on the agenda is announcement pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0415, Mayor, Council, and staff may report on various items listed on the agenda. Council, are there any announcements at this time? Staff, do you have any announcements?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Ms.
Just-
Guthrie.
Thank you, sir. Just a reminder of the new resident mixer on September 23rd at 5:30. So if you're listening, you're a new resident and have not received an invitation, please call Town Hall and ask for Erica, and we'll be sure and get you one. Also National Night Out, October 5th. It's going to be a great celebration. I think there's helicopters and fireworks and all sorts of fun things that are going to happen that night. And then mark your calendars for our Veterans Day celebration on November 11th. And then our Turkey Trot, I think we're about to roll out pre-registration for that. And that happens obviously Thanksgiving morning at 7:30 a.m. So be watching for registration.
These are great events. I hope we can all our citizens come and participate in all these events, especially Turkey Trot. It's really fun. And the National Night Out. Okay, other additional announcement from the staff? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item. That's a public forum. This is the time members of the audience may come forward and speak to the council on any items other than personnel or legal matters or items on the agenda. If you would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so at this time. If you are joining us, we don't have a Zoom call, do we? They do, right? Okay. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Erica, anyone raising their hands?
No, sir.
No hands raised. I'm going to close the public forum. Moving on to consent agenda items, council, we have item number 3, 4, and 5 on the consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Okay, if not, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda item 3, 4, and 5?
So moved. So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Finch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Freeman to approve consent agenda item 3, 4, and 5. All in favor of motion signify. All opposed to motion pass 6. Mr. Allen is absent. Moving on to the public hearing portion of the agenda, item number 6. Hold a public hearing, discuss, consider, and act upon the first reading of ordinance 21-17, changing the zoning of portions of 6 lots, total 11.604 acres, located generally at 300 to 306 US Highway 80 from Highway Commercial HC to Planned Development, case 1707Z, Sunnyvale West. W. Charles?
It is. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. So this request is for a site on the south side of US Highway 80, a little west of Planters Road, adjacent to Samuel Farm South. The site includes portions of 6 lots that would involve the developer purchasing about an acre of property from the rear of what is currently the Extreme Air Services site, and then trading some land with the town at our Riverstone pump station to create an approximately 1.6 acre developable tract. The tract would have access from the Highway 80 service road, as well as a secondary drive out to Planters Road. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property from highway commercial to a planned development that would allow for the construction of a 202,000 square foot light manufacturing and distribution center that would have 47 loading docks that would face west towards the Samuel Farm property. And the PD would utilize the highway commercial standards as the base requirements, but would allow for light manufacturing and distribution uses by right rather than requiring a special use designation since we're approving the site plan and everything now at this time, and also have some revised development standards. Most of the revised development standards for the PD are being copied from a plan development that was approved last year for a similar type of development just across the street, Planters at the southeast corner of Planters and Highway 80. And those alternative standards allow for less parking than is generally required. It relaxes some of the internal landscaping requirements, since this is likely to be at least a portion of it, a distribution center with large trucks driving around, and then waiving some of the building articulation and design standards that are less feasible for this type of construction. The building would be predominantly painted concrete tilt wall with stone veneer and storefront glazing and metal seam canopy accents at the entrances. Additionally, we wanted to be mindful of the adjacent Riverstone Trail apartments that's just south of this property. So a couple things to note about that. That adjacency is one of the reasons that we oriented the loading docks to the west, so that the building itself would be a buffer from the activity that occurs on the loading docks to the apartments. And that works because of the distance that this property is from Planters, with our pump station in between this site and Planters, whereas the apartments to the south front directly onto Planters. Most of the apartments are actually adjacent to our pump station property, not this property. In fact, if you kind of line up where the westernmost row of apartment buildings are, it lines up with the eastern facade of this building. So you have the whole building basically to the west of the apartment. So again, the loading dock isn't anywhere near the apartments. From a use perspective, talking about light manufacturing by definition means that there's no noise or odors or dust or any other kinds of pollutants that leaves the property. So that inherently should protect the adjacent residences from any sort of noxious side effects of having a manufacturing facility next door. And then the building itself is 100 feet from the southern property line, and part of that 100-foot is a 20-foot landscape buffer that will have trees planted in it. On the apartment side of the property line, there's about a 40-foot landscape buffer with a very dense, mature row of landscaping that serves as a good visual buffer in between the two properties. We are also proposing 2 additional standards for this PD that weren't in the PD from across Planters. And I have to apologize because the version that was included in the packet didn't include these 2 conditions, even though they're talked about in the agenda memo. But they are what is printed out before you at your places. There's 2 things we added. The first is a provision that allows the building to be a height of 47 feet. That's pretty important for a distribution or light manufacturing facility of this size to have that kind of ceiling height to move stuff around inside the building. And typically when you're adjacent to residential zoning districts, there's what's called a transitional zone, where as you approach the property line with the residences, the building has to get lower. And for Sunnyvale, that's a 3-to-1 slope. For every 3 feet you are away from the property line, your building can go up 1 foot. So I mentioned this was 100 feet from that property line. So typically the maximum building height would be about 33 feet. But that transitional zone is really intended for single family zoning districts or other lower density zoning districts where there's a backyard and some expectation of privacy. You don't want tall buildings right next door, people looking over into your backyards. With an apartment complex, there isn't that that same expectation of privacy when you're outside. It's all common open space for the residents. The apartments themselves are tall. There's that very dense, tall row of trees that I mentioned in between. So we felt like that was a reasonable accommodation for this development. And then the second thing that we're adding to the PD is a prohibition of the storage or queuing of trucks either on any of the streets adjacent to the property or in between the building and the south property line, again, to help protect the residences to the south of this site. So The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this request at their August meeting, and they recommend approval. And staff would also recommend approval of the version of the ordinance that you all have with you that includes the 2 extra standards that I just mentioned. Happy to answer any questions.
Charles, one quick question. The quadplexes we have over there, the residential quadplexes, you said there are no, because of this PD, there are no privacy concerns because just a tall building.
Right. So typically when you have this transitional zone, it's when you have a single family home where you have like a fenced in backyard and you don't want maybe a tall office building or something like that with people looking down into, your fenced in backyard. A couple things, because this is the kind of development it is, you're not going to have people that high up in the building, and there's no windows that high up in the building, so you don't have those same sight lines. But also because there are no fenced in backyards, there's not that same expectation that you can be out and kind of be private in your backyard the same way you can in a single family home.
Council, can I open up for public comments? Come back to you. Will you okay? Okay, this is a public comments item. Let me open up for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Eric, anyone raising their hands?
No, sir.
The hands raised. We have the applicant here. Would you like to come forward and speak to the council, sir? Good evening, sir. Would you state your name and address?
Yes, sir. Eric Langford, 5924 Twin Coves in Dallas.
Good evening, sir. Do you have anything else to add?
Really, I would just like to thank the town for the support that we've had from the council and staff. It's been really a good experience for us, so thank you for that.
Okay.
And I'm available for any questions if anyone has.
Okay, council, do you have any, so do we know what type of businesses are going to be here? This is going to be 6 lots, right?
Yes, we typically attract businesses that are in light manufacturing. This is a really strong area for labor for the whole metroplex. It's regarded as that. So we would expect light manufacturing, sales, things of that nature.
Okay.
High tech.
Gotcha. High tech. Okay. Council, any question for Mr. Langford or for staff? Mr. Finch? Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. You say light manufacturing, unknown what that looks like. Question about it. Is there going to be a cup or anything outside? Any kind of equipment that's going to be outside?
No, sir, we don't
Things to be roof
anticipate that.
mounted or
If there was any, we would expect it to be behind the building facing west. So Sunnyvale, if you will, would not see that.
but not on the residential side either, because I'm certain.
We're prohibited from that, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that we.
Mr. Egan?
So I think I'm pretty familiar with this type of operation. There's windows on one of the front faces that are that appear to be at the second level, but there's not, at least it doesn't point out, just says standing seam metal canopy. Even below the canopy, it looks like windows at what would be like a 1.5-story level. But those aren't going to be viewable windows because there's not a floor in there.
Yes, sir, that's an architectural.
It's just an
feature.
architectural, and it
Looks
actually gives
nice.
character to the structure of the building, and for that we appreciate that. But the second thing is this is pretty much going to be build to order type of assembly as opposed to manufacturing assembly. For instance, like a Dell distribution warehouse down in Austin, they pick and pull, put all together, build to a pallet or something of that nature. They're not literally running rivet guns and things like that. Although I don't know that would be that much of a problem just because the noise is going to go to the west. But
Our team's built about 2 million square feet of these, and surprisingly, you do get those kind of tenants as well.
okay. And then the final thing is truck standing, truck idling on that long driveway coming in from the east. Is that going to be prohibited? I know within the county, within the state to a certain degree, they can't just sit there and idle, but I want to make sure that they're not going to be sitting there doing that, at least on that long stretch.
As Mr. Goff mentioned, yeah, we're not allowed to do that either, nor do we typically get that much truck traffic. We would expect more car traffic, frankly.
Thank you, sir.
Are there additional questions for Mr. Langford or for Mr. Goff? Do you have anything else for?
No, sir. Thank you for your
Thanks for
time.
coming and visiting with us. Appreciate you. Okay, council, are there any additional discussions or questions on item number 6? Okay, if not, again, this is the first reading. Can I have a motion on item number 6?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Eldridge, second by Mr. Finch to approve item number 6 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Thank you very much. Susan, I expect this to be on a consent agenda next time. Is that the plan? Be on the consent agenda, but council always have the option to pull it off from the consent agenda and discuss it if needed. But Mr. Langford, thanks for being here tonight. Thank you, Charles. Goff. Moving on to item number 7, hold a public hearing. Discuss, consider, and act upon a replat of Stony Creek Phase 4B, Lot 2R and 24R at the northwest and southwest corners of Fenwick Drive and Skyline Trail. Mr. Goff.
Yep, me again. So this is a request for a replat for 2 residential properties on the north and south side of Fenwick Drive within Phase 4B of the Stony Creek residential development. And these 2 properties are actually on the edge of Phase 4B as it transitions into Phase 4A. And when 4A was platted, it was assumed that Fenwick Drive would continue uninterrupted and have alleys that would serve the homes on both the north and south side of the street. But as they moved into finalizing 4B, the layout of 4B and platting 4B, the decision was made to add the street that bisects Fenwick, and then also not to use alleys in this phase. So you have these alley stub outs that were anticipated when they platted 4A to be used by 4B, but that ended up not being necessary. And so what the developer is requesting is to replat the 2 lots that are on the edge, that are kind of in that transition. And that's lots 2R and 24R, to remove the adjacent alley and just incorporate that area into the property. And so for lot 2R, that's on the north side of the street, that lot would increase in size from about 18,000 square feet up to about almost 23,000 square feet. And that lot would have a front entry J-swing garage. For lot 24R on the south side, there's a portion of that alley that serves the homes in 4A to the west that comes from behind those houses and up by this lot out to the street. So it's just a little stub out to continue the alley that we're removing and incorporating into the property, and that would increase the property size by about 850 square feet. Since that lot still has access to an alley to the side, that garage would front or face the alley kind of to the side instead of at the rear. And so you would still have your alley garage access. So the plat conforms with all requirements. Like I said, it's just cleaning up kind of this transitional area in between the 2 phases. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this request at their August meeting as well and recommends approval.
Okay, let me open up for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council on item number 7, you may do so. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Erica, anyone raising their hands?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public hearing. Do we have an applicant here? Good evening, sir. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Helen Helfrich at 5225 Village Creek Drive, Plano, Texas.
Good to see you again.
Thank
Do you have anything else to add?
I don't, just here to answer any questions. Charles explained everything really well. Appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of cleaning up the transition between the phase 4A and 4B.
Charles, you and me had some email communication earlier on this item. Again, I meant to follow up with you again, but I didn't get a chance to do that. So our UDO does not allow front entry garages, but these garages are going to be, I know we are removing the alleys. So the garages are still on the side as a J entry, right? Not a front entry garage. Did I get that right or not?
Yes,
Maybe
yeah.
front facing garages. Let me ask that question.
They're not front facing. They're on the kind of the front part of the property, but they're J swing, so they face the side.
So we had an ordinance change, UDO change, where we said the garages will be, I forgot exactly how many feet offset from the front. Would they comply with the requirement?
Yes,
Okay. So it's not on the side, it is on the outside, not inside, right? So in other words, the cars will not be parking in the front of the house. I think that's what we were trying to remove by the UDO amendment.
so the UDO amendment is it still allows, you know, driveways at the front of the house, but the garage faces, so the garage door faces a side of the house, either left or right, not front towards the street. So you'd have your driveway from the street up into the garage, but it could still be at the front of the house, just not front facing.
I thought the garages must be behind the property line.
It has to be within 10 foot of the front of the facade. So you can't have just your garage be at the front. But it could still be at the front of the structure.
That's what I remember too, Mayor, is that it had to be, there was an offset. Could be the only thing at the front of the house.
Cannot be only thing.
Right, and then there's a 10-foot offset, and then is the garage gonna be on Skyline, or is it gonna be on me? Oh, it has to be on Fenwick or Skyline, like, it'll be one of those two streets, right? The garage,
Correct.
it's gonna be on Fenwick, so will the house be addressed on Skyline then?
The side street, no, it'll be dressed off of Fenwick.
So the garage will face Fenwick? Or will it face the alley, or will it face Skyline?
For the north lot 2R, I don't know.
Okay,
It's gonna depend on the type of product that particular buyer gets. But I do know that per the ordinance, and Charles, please correct me if I'm wrong, per the ordinance, the garage cannot face the front.
right, so if
You
it's,
can have a driveway go up and then J swing it is.
so it's, if it's address Fenwick, the garage door cannot face Fenwick, just to be clear, right? Is that what your understanding is?
Yes,
too? I'm sorry,
I agree.
I meant that as a question.
No,
I'm sorry about that. Okay, so for both homes, though, the garage will not face the addressed street.
That's correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finch. Thanks, Charles. Council, any question for the applicant or for Charles? Anything else you want to add, sir? Thank you very much. Charles, you have any other comments?
No, sir.
All right. Council, if there are no other discussions, I call for a motion, right, number 7.
Motion to approve item 7 is presented.
Motion made by Mr. Finch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Eldridge to approve item number 7 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Mr. Allen is absent. Thank you, sir. So next item is not an action item agenda. This is more of a item to hold a public hearing and discuss the 2021-2022 proposed budget. Ms. Hayes, good evening, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, tonight we're going to present the budget for you. We've presented it in several other meetings previously, but this is heading us into the formal preparation for adopting your budget. So as you can see, that's where we are at this point in time for the public hearing. This is the same presentation that we've had before. I just want to point out a few changes that we've made and highlight some additional information for you. As you remember, on August 9, you had approved or proposed rather a rate of 0.4567 for your tax. We wanted to true up the budget to that published proposed rate. Doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be, but we wanted for presentation purposes have the same rate in our budget. So the property tax rate is calculated at the 0.4567 and is budgeted at 4.7 million. We've got the supplemental request already loaded in there of 224,000, and you'll see those supplementals on the next slide. That will give you $221,577 that we've just slotted away in that non-departmental line item for town council approved projects. Go to the next slide. These are a list of all the supplementals that have been approved so far, and they are, like I said earlier, loaded into the budget at this time. This is the general fund balance summary, and you'll see that we are kind of expecting the road maintenance of 2.5 to roll over. So anything that's lapsed will roll over into the new year. So we're expecting the fund balance at the end to be 4.7. Any questions on the general fund? Okay. General economic, we made no changes for that presentation. We just wanted to point out that the lapsed appropriations for the budget will roll forward in 2021. We're thinking it's about 1.3 million. The next slide is the same fund summary showing the 1.3 incentives that will probably roll forward. Any questions on the economic development fund? Water fund? Again, no changes from the previous presentation. We still haven't received re-rates from North Texas Municipal Water District, so we'll probably get those here within the next couple of weeks. And we do have 30,000 funded in for next year for the water rate study. And that is in your proposed budget. Any questions on the water fund?
What's the fund balance? How many days of one? Do we have the fund balance like that?
Fund balance is usually working capital, not by actual days. It's the dollars, but it's proposed to be a little over 4 million
For the waterfront?
for the water fund.
Yep, I see it. Thanks.
Debt service, we had no changes in debt service. Just a little reminder that the debt payments for the next year is 1.8 million, and we're anticipating projected fund balance to be 502,000. Any questions on debt service? Okay. Move on to road impact fund. On the road impact fund, we still are budgeting at 95 permits. It's currently funding a portion of the Collin Road phase intersection improvements, and we have updated it for some overages of about 500,000. And also wanted to include some information or some dollars, I guess, for the street light poles. We did not make any budget assumptions for commercial impact fees either. And our fund balance, what we're projecting at the end of this year is 1.5 or a little over 1.51, and next year 813,000. Any questions on the road impact fund?
Nope.
Okay. The water sewer impact fund, again, we budgeted 95 permits for the water impact and at $2,686 and $473 for the sewer impact. No budget assumptions for the commercial impact fees, and the ending fund balance is budgeted to be 2.1 million. I have there again the fund summary for you, and of course the ENCODE reports are at the end. Any questions on that water sewer impact fund? Next, we have the CIP fund. Wanted to point out that the remaining balance of the 2019 public safety tax notes, estimated at 1.6 million, will be used to fund the gap in the construction of the new fire station and will roll forward into next year's budget. Capital improvement plan, which was recommendations from the CIP Citizens Committee, is also attached in your presentation. Any lapse appropriations will definitely roll over into the new year. Any questions on the CIP fund?
One question maybe for Susan. Susan, because later in the agenda, we have the my contracts project. Would that come out of the current budget, or would that be on the new budget?
It's budgeted in the current budget, but most likely it'll roll over into next year's budget, and that's where we'll pay for them.
So both the fund balance and the expense will roll over into the next.
That's
next year.
correct.
Okay.
And it won't show up in this budget. If you recall, after we end the budget year and then they close the books, we come back to you in November and true up all the rollovers and excess reserves. So that's when you'll see that hit the budget.
Thank you.
Next, we have 4B Economic Development Fund. I want to point out that the planning line item includes funding of the community recs and library center feasibility study of $37,500. And then the ending fund balance is projected to be 1.4. Nothing else has really changed on that presentation. Homestead Amenities. I'd like to point out that the capital expenditures for Tripp, Jobson roads are budgeted for $283,000, and we're anticipating a fund balance of 0 to finish that particular fund out. Any questions on Homestead Amenities? Okay. Special revenue. Special revenue is mainly a mixture of activity for donations and grants and special fees, etc. So you'll see the listing of all the different kinds of special revenue. The main one I wanted to point out is at the very end, the American Rescue Plan funds. We put that in the special revenue fund, just like we did the CARES Act dollars. The town was allocated 1.6 million. And at this time, we didn't reflect any money into the budget. We've got another agenda item later to present those dollars for you. So the next slide shows all the different fees and revenue, special revenue for you. Any questions on special revenue?
Nope.
And then the last one is the PEG fund. We wanted to point out that we have budgeted $70,000 next year to establish a PEG station.
Okay.
We can actually start spending down some of that money.
That'd be the all of it.
Yes. Maybe a few couple dollars left over of it. That's the majority of it. And that's what I have for the budget presentation.
Okay, Shirley, thank you very much. Council, this is a public hearing. Agenda items, and we have time to discuss it. So let me open up for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council on item number 8, you may do so. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. Okay, no one is coming forward from the chamber. Erica, anyone raising their hands?
No, sir.
No hands raised. I'm going to close the public hearing. Council, any discussions on 2021-2022 proposed budget? Okay. So moving on, Susan, there are no actions on this one, right? So we're moving on to item number 9, hold a public hearing, discuss and consider and act upon a final direction to staff on the 2021-2022 proposed tax rate. I think Shirley already mentioned the current estimates are made of 0.4567. She already went through the budget. Sherry, anything else you want to add?
Regarding the tax rate,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, on my presentation. We went ahead and proposed the 4, 5, 6, 7 as we suggested back in August. And what I'd like to just kind of bring you up to history where we are. Our current tax rate is the same, 4, 5, 6, 7. The truth in taxation calculation showed that your no new revenue rate is 0.437985. Our voter approval rate is 0.485245. Now, our current rate is within the middle between the two of those. So the rate we published back in August, we stayed flat with 0.4567. If you move on to the next slide, you'll see how we compare to other cities around us and towns for benchmarking purposes. You can see that the blue bar represents what those towns are proposing, and the green bar is what they actually are at this point in time for 2020.
Sorry, let me ask you, is that the same set of benchmark cities we use for everything?
I believe so. Yeah.
For the most part, okay, but not, okay. I didn't think we compare with the Dallas all the time, but such a big, Garland and Dallas seems to be a very
Okay.
big city compared to us.
Okay, yeah, these were benchmarks that were utilized last year, and I'm sorry, I just didn't change the benchmarks, but I can do that if you like. So you'll see with the proposed, I pulled Sunnyvale out, so you can see that the proposed tax rate is the same 0.4567. What we put, or what the direction was previously from August, you had a rate of 0.4493. We still need to have that discussion, but for this presentation, I kept it flat at 0.4567. So you see the next slide. That is our comparisons between the various tax rates that we have, our debt rate, our voter approval rate, and you can see from 21, 22 to what the calculation came to and versus what we really were back in 2020 and 2021. If you keep the tax rate flat, you'll see that that is your M&O rate at the bottom of 0.32489. And of course, our INS rate wouldn't change no matter which way you go. It's still going to be 0.1318. Next slide, please. The proposed budget tax rate of 0.4567 gives you 6.664 in your budget, which is the same rate that we proposed for the tax rate back in August. That will give you an additional 221,577. Again, that is over into that town council approved projects. It's not part of operating expenses at all. It wouldn't be used for that. So what we're looking for in direction from you is to give us which rate you really want to move forward with. So we can continue either to change the budget to the lower rate of 0.4493 or keep the tax rate flat as we have it now in the budget.
Anything else, Sherry?
I'm Looking for discussion.
Okay, council may open up for public hearing, public comments, members of the audience. If you'd like to come forward and speak to the council on item number 9, you may do so. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber to talk about item number 9. Erica, anyone raising their hands?
No, sir.
No hands raised. I'm going to close the public hearing on item number 9. Should I have one question, just clarification? At 0.4567, we'll add $221,000.
Yes, sir.
And the current anticipated 2020 fund balance is $746,000, right?
On general fund?
Yeah, general fund is on. I know we have different funds.
Depends on what multiplier you use. Which one did you use?
No, I'm just doing the total number, $746, right?
I came up with something higher. What did you?
I thought I just read from here. General fund details, page number 56. Ending fund balance assigned 746,346. Am I right or wrong?
Are you looking at the proposed budget for 20?
Yeah, I'm looking at page number 6 of 171 or page number. The presentation you just made. Or page 56, how about that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Ending fund balance is 746, is that right?
I'm showing, you go back and looking at the budget document,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah. I'm showing that the proposed budget would come out to total fund balance 4.796.
Yeah, and then there's 143 days of operating days, so your excess
Okay.
would be reserved would be 90 minus 143, so I come up to 1.219.
1.2, what again? What did you say?
I mean, I used 23,000, because I mean, you can, depends upon the day, but if you use 23,000, I came up with 1.219. And today I looked at a little bit, I took a glance at our current budget to try to determine where is that coming from. And what I think, and these are very rough numbers, it's about 500,000 in excess revenue. And the balance of that, about 750, and again, very rough, is expenditure savings. Sherry, anything you want to contradict in my statement? Okay. And I just think that's important to remember, because you never want to fund operations out of a savings. You need to make sure if you're going to add operations that the revenue stream to continue to maintain them is there. And a one-time savings, I don't think is prudent financial management to do it unless you know you're going to have the capability in the following year to add that. So I just want to point that out. We did do that with police when we started up police. We delved into that, but we knew that the following year we would have that revenue. So that's how I see it comprised right now at a quick glance.
Council questions or discussions on item number 9?
I've had,
Mr. Freeman?
it seems, the number that always stuck in my head was 4.5, but if you're saying 44993, right? Like that's the other proposed budget rate.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
And that would give us roughly half of that 221, roughly like around 110,000 of additional revenue
Yes, sir.
for next year. Awesome. Thank you.
Rachel, do we vote this? Ms. Clark? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I like the idea of being able to lower the tax rates. We've been flat for the last 2 years. But it will be nice to be able to lower it a little. I am concerned, maybe, do we want to lower it that much? I mean, just, I know we discussed it before, like going half. Do we want to bump it up a little, still lower it, but still try to get some more revenue? I think we have some costs that we're gonna need to look at and try to figure out how to pay for. So I just want to throw that out there, get people's thoughts.
Mr. Freeman?
I have a question, Susan. You said 500,000 of additional revenue. Is that additional revenue that's one-time revenue? Recurring? Did we?
It's hard to say. It's
Okay.
building permit revenue. The
Okay.
majority of it is building permit revenue. So if everything stays great and the economy stays strong, we would hope that would continue, but there's no guarantee of that. So that's why we never budget for that. That's how we've done capital, smaller capital projects is you don't budget for it and then it becomes excess reserves and then you use it for, like something like we did with the street maintenance project. That's how we're funding that that's how those excess reserves were built. So it's no way to predict that that's going to continue. We hope it will, but from a conservative budgeting standpoint, I'm hesitant to commit that that is going to continue because there's so many things that are outside of our control that could impact that. Short supply chain issues, interest rate issues, a variety of issues can affect building permits. But that's where the majority of the revenue came from.
Thank you.
Rachel, do we need to vote individually by everybody needs to individually vote? Is that the way it works?
No, no individual vote, just a vote for direction to staff.
Anybody else have any comments? Mr. Finch,
Susan, maybe I've missed it. Where does our sales tax revenue fall in that budget line item? Like, where do we see that?
Yeah, it's in general fund. Phyllis, do you know, you have the number in front of you handy, so I don't have to go flipping through where we're at. We're a little ahead right now.
I'm just curious what we budgeted.
We
and-
budgeted flat for the same reason
So we're ahead, we're a little bit ahead on that
this
right
year.
now.
Yeah, we were running behind for most of the year. And then all of a sudden, the last couple of months, we started pulling ahead, but it was not looking good for probably the first 6 months, Phyllis? And again, with the unknowns with COVID, I mean, that's the thing that it affects the most. And construction and sales tax are very linked. So we did, again, it is very conservative. The money doesn't go away. It just rolls and gets available for capital projects. But we did budget conservatively at flat for that, kind of based upon when we started the budget, we weren't in a good position. But over the last couple of months, we have pulled ahead.
We, as I recall, in last year, during the middle, our sales tax stayed pretty consistent as well, right?
That's correct, sir. But didn't grow significantly.
The additional discussions. Council, I think I mentioned my position all the time. I like to lower it. At least to 0.45 or less. That's just 0.0074. How much? I think that mindset of lowering tax when we can is something I want to pursue, but I'll leave to the council here. Yes, sir.
What did you say? What was your rate that you're?
I was just doing the math, right? 0.4567 minus 0.4493 is 0.0074 difference. So I was thinking about 0.45 or less. 0.45 be 0.0068.
What is that, based on that calculation? I don't know if somebody can give us a
110,000 is,
110,000.
am I right, Sherry?
Is that middle of the road that we talked about already?
Are we going to, I know we had discussed kind of what we would think about spending that additional revenue on. Do we have to make a decision on that today, or is that something else that we just need to kind of curb for later discussion?
Right now, we have it, because it is loaded in the budget right now at 0.4567. And it's in one particular line item. It's under non-departmental on page 34 of your encode report, and the line, 35 of your encode report. And it's on a line number 610-6141, it looks like. 6709. And it's called Town Council Projects. So it's sitting there for your direction as to what you want to spend that on.
The capital projects at this point.
It could be operational. That would be your decision. It could go into anything that you choose, but it wouldn't be at our discretion to spend without your direction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Eldridge, Mr. Egan, do you have any comments?
No, I'm comfortable with lowering the tax rate. I think it's probably the right thing to do. We've been raising it what, last couple of years.
We kind of stayed flat for a
Flat
long
last
time. I
year.
don't think we probably lowered just a little bit. I don't think we went up. But now the economy is
Right.
picking up and
I think it's been flat for the last 2 years. and We kept it flat.
I think we even lowered one time before that.
I think those, looking at the metrics, it's important to note that we are still one of the lowest in Dallas County of all the entire area. We're very low, drastically low if you look at some of the towns and cities around us. So I think it's just a good
Okay.
fact to share.
Sorry. I mean, but yeah, my apologies. Mr. Finch, you have a comment, sir? Mr. Egan?
Well, from my Mesquite Country Farm Boy perspective, raising it, I think, would never be a good idea at this stage of the game. I think most are comfortable with where we're at. I will agree, we do have projects coming up. I don't know that there's necessarily any snakes in the grass that we need to worry about over the next year, but I think there's a comfort level with the current tax rate as it sits. Yeah, we keep trying to beat down, I particularly keep trying to beat down excess reserves, and Susan's right. I've had conversations about it. That is kind of like a rainy day fund available for us for those one-time expense things that need to be accomplished, not long-term recurring costs. Yeah, I could say yes to lowering the tax rate, but I'm also just as comfortable with keeping the tax rate where we are right now. I don't think it makes, what was the number, 0.007? I mean, what does that end up being out of somebody's paycheck every month when they make their house payment, if they're paying their taxes through their property taxes? I mean, there's probably a few people in this town that have to pay a significant amount of money, but probably wouldn't be living in that house if they couldn't afford that. Again, we're not going up. I think we've been very conscious of the money that we spent. In fact, there's been a few savings that have not been discussed in this chamber in any of the meetings over the course of the recent year due to decisions that we made 2 and 3 years ago that I think give us this opportunity to be prepared for some future things. Maybe it's next year that the tax rate goes down. But I think that the town historically, because we haven't been able to spend on the things that needed to be done, we still have some opportunity to do that today and maybe into next year. And then at that point, then that's when we'll probably start looking at it, provided the dam doesn't break and all of a sudden we've really got some real issues.
So I'll give you my thoughts also. We last year, mid-year, we lowered the tax rate we drained the fund balance to 120 days. That was an intentional, purposeful decision we made to support the Mike Road construction project. The right decision. I supported it. All of us supported it. I'm looking at the ending fund balance assigned is 346. If that's the number going to be, if I do 20,000, and that's what we use, 23,000 will be less number of days. That'll be under some number of days. I can't remember. Yeah, so that'll be so Shuri, again, back on page number. Let me make sure I understand this one. 56. Right, that's the general fund balance summary. So we have an ending fund balance assigned of 746.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yes,
sir.
ma'am. And at the bottom, it says equivalent operating days 124.
Yes, sir.
Are we saying that 746,000 is equal to 124? That number doesn't make sense to me, but I will believe you.
It's the 4.796.
The $746,000 number is your assigned fund balance for projects like the vehicle replacement plan.
Assigned, assigned,
Using.
assigned,
money that can't be, that is not for,
assigned.
right.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Number.
I don't. Oh, yeah, I do see.
Okay, that equivalent operating days is where you would look to figure out what your excess reserves are. So you would take either 90 or 120 from that, and then whatever's left, multiply it times 23,000-ish. And
So-
that tells you your
Yes, ma'am.
amount of money. that
So,
you have.
so let me get back. So we lowered the 2021 to 120 days to support the DMIC. So if I'm looking at the current year, not the next year, right? It says equivalent operating days 124. So it only went up by 4 days. I thought it's going to go up by 100, another 37 days. Did something change?
What you're looking at is the amended budget for the current year.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
when we made that change, it lowered it to 124 days.
So the 120 is what we lowered to for the DMIC project.
That's correct.
So since then, it only went up by 4 days.
That's correct.
I thought the number is going to go up to 157. I thought I heard that comment from the staff.
Well, I think what you're looking at here is the amended budget. It's not actual. It's not where you
Oh.
are as of right now.
I see. Do we know what's the actual as of now?
I don't believe we have any actual reports as of like August with us.
Okay. Do we have an estimate of where that number would end up? Or that's stretching it?
That is something we can get for you, but it would be a guess at this point.
Because I thought I asked the question, the number came up to be 157. That's what I remember. Again, if you don't have the numbers, so. Again, I know our staff is very good in being conservative in their estimate. I think you are doing the right thing. So even with the 120, if you have gone up to 157, sales tax, we budgeting flat. But if I look around from one end of Collins to the other end of Collins and Belline, I anticipate the sales tax to go up. I understand we have a sales tax discount we give to businesses. But I also heard from the staff that when the construction starts, that adds up a lot of into the sales tax bucket. So for me, I think Mr. Egan, I fully respect what you said. I still believe you're extremely conservative. We have discounts, all of you, very focused, purposeful decision on spending on projects like the roads and sewer. I think you did the right thing, and I fully very supportive of everything you did. I think you did the right thing. But I also, this year, I believe we can lower it. I just want to get that mindset that we do the best we can to lower it. Because what's the good number? We can go up to some half the percentage, and some people still won't be happy. That's just the way it is, right? But at least I just want to be, in my mind, at least I want to be, try to develop the mindset of trying to lower it. Not to cut the future of it, not to shortchange the future, or not to kill any capital improvement. Not interested at all. I want to spend on what is important at the time, but at the same time, if I can have the cake and eat it too, I like to have it. From that, I'm going to support 0.45 at least. But with that, is there any other comment?
Right now, as I said, I'm glad we have the opportunity to cut it. I'm just wondering if 0.45 is the right one, you want to do 0.455.
Just definitely 0.006 versus 0.002.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, in a second, I'll give you a minute in a second, make a proposal. So, if you have a comment, sir?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other comments, I call for a motion, or is there a motion? Is that what I call it? Do I ask for a tax rate?
Yeah, I would make a motion because we need consensus about what we're going to do moving
Yes,
forward.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I call for a motion right number 9.
I make a motion to approve the tax rate at 0.44993.
And just a reminder that we're not approving the tax rate, we're providing direction to staff. You'll get a chance to vote on the tax rate at the next meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
My motion would be that we tell staff to move forward with that one.
Is that a motion again, right, Susan? Is that the right terminology? Motion made by Mr. Freeman proposing a tax rate of 0.4493. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Eldridge, with a proposed tax rate of 0.4493. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions?
Mayor,
Mr. Finch?
have a few comments. The one thing I do worry about, and I understand I struggle with this, I do worry about inflation and what's happening to all of us. And I do worry about us being able to effectively fund public safety. So I worry about those two things when we talk about, because no resident's going to come and ask us about lowering the tax rate by a small amount if we can't effectively service them, especially on the public safety side. So I do worry about that, and it is concerning to me. While I want to reduce the tax rate, I'm with my tax bill, and I would love to reduce the tax rate. I am concerned about those two items, especially when it comes to our public safety side. And I know we're going to have a discussion and what we're going to do with this, some of these excess reserves, especially if we don't get the grant. And then we're going to be forced to make some decisions about whether we dip into those other funds. And so I am concerned about that, even with the small reduction, that we're not able to effectively provide those services to our town. And then we're going to be back in a position mid-year to where we're going to be relooking at this and potentially dipping down below 120 if we're forced to. And so I understand both sides. I struggle with it internally about it. And so I just wanted to voice those thoughts, because the next discussion we have will be on, if we don't get that SAFER grant, on how we're going to fund public safety. And I'll tell you, my position is we have to fund it. And so however we do that, knowing that moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Finch. Very good point about public safety. Are there additional discussions on this item? Okay, if none, all in favor of proposed budget of 0.4493, raise your hand. All opposed? In favor of 0.4493, Mr. Clark, Mr. Finch, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Eldridge, and Mr. George. Opposed to it is Mr. Egan, and Mr. Allen is absent. Moving on to discussion and action item portion of the agenda. Item number 10, discuss, consider, and act upon the first reading of ordinance 921-18, amending section 10.02 of the Code of Ordinances to include regulations for the unauthorized entry or usage of reserved or rented town facilities. Would that be? Good morning, Bert. Or good evening, I should say.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah. So this item's meant to address unauthorized entry or usage of reserved or rented town facilities. Here recently, we've had some incidents where people went through the proper process, reserved facilities, showed up, and other people that did not go through the proper procedures were there. Obviously, sometimes those things get heated. So the language in this ordinance is meant to codify the usage regulations. It will allow Sunnyvale PD enforcement capacity and, hopefully prevent this moving forward. Once if it's approved, the language signs would be posted at all of the reservable town facilities, reflecting that ordinance. And the language in the ordinance is consistent with other municipalities and their usage regulations. So JD and I are here. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Let me open up for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to speak to the council on item number 10, you may come forward. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Erica, anyone raising their hand?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close item number, public comments on item number 10. Burton, I think I'm very familiar with this topic. Susan has given me a lot of details behind it, so I have no questions. Council, any questions for discussions on item number 10? Mr. Cross?
I'll just have a comment. I appreciate you both putting this together, Burton and JD. I think this is needed for some of the usage of our soccer fields, other areas. So we've had some issues. So thank you for responding quickly. This would be a good level-headed response.
Maybe I have one question, maybe JD. So somebody is found violating, in violation of the rule. Do we call PD at that time? How does the enforcement work?
Well, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Currently, right now, what happens, let's say, for example, that we have a soccer practice schedule posted at the park.
Okay.
Our Youth Soccer Association has gone through the procedure correctly.
Yep.
And we have our fields posted along with the schedule. If someone, what I would call a rogue soccer team, is there on a field they're not supposed to be on, we have no previous knowledge of them wanting to use the soccer field. Somebody at the park calls me.
Okay.
We try to discuss.
Your name is posted or something?
No, sir. Everyone has my number.
Okay.
From the Soccer Association, the leadership group.
Okay.
They'll call me. I'll give them direction. You know, hey, I'm looking here. We've got an empty field. Can they move back there and get out of your scheduled field? Sometimes they'll work with us. Most of the time they won't. So at that point, what we do is we ask them to leave. We show them the schedule. We give them the opportunity to understand you're more than welcome to use the field, but you have to go through the process.
Correct.
And then if that still doesn't work, then we'll call dispatch. And currently, it's tough on the police because we don't have an ordinance for them to actually enforce only a rental document.
Gotcha. So then PD will issue to whoever you're on.
Correct. Well, they would ask them to leave. If they wouldn't leave at that point, they would be issued a trespass ticket, I would suppose. And then if they return,
Who do they issue to? I mean, there's a bunch of,
police.
I know, but a bunch of kids out there, right?
They would issue it to whoever is there that is in violation.
Oh, I'm
of the
sorry, I
ordinance.
misunderstood.
Okay.
Yes, sir. They would issue it to the team or players or who's ever using the pavilion during a rental time that's not supposed to be there. They would issue it to them if they wouldn't leave.
Okay. Mr.
Right,
Finch?
and let
Mr. Powell?
me add, it's usually teams, it's teams from other communities that come and use the field, which is fine. We're happy to share. It's an issue of when Sunnyvale teams are trying to practice and play.
Of course, more than Sunnyvale, I think you reserve this location, right? Okay.
Correct.
Other teams can reserve it or they can't.
We have a policy that they can do it within 2 weeks of the date. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct, JD?
Yes, ma'am. And even what we'll do is if Sunnyvale Youth Soccer, again, for example, has submitted me their schedule, if someone that's not on the schedule, that's not involved with Sunnyvale Youth Soccer, if we have an open area, if we have an open field, we'll rent it to them. If the field that they want due to age or competition level is already reserved by Sunnyvale Youth Soccer, we'll tell them, you know, we're sorry. Here's a copy of the schedule. We're more than happy to work with you, but Sunnyvale Youth Soccer obviously takes precedence.
Gotcha. Mr. Finch, comment, sir?
Just curious, based on your experience, and Susan, you can add here too, what, is this the standard practice for other cities?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And actually, some communities don't allow any use of the field if they're not reserved at all. And so, and I think that is why with our fields, people are coming over, they're in good shape. They look really good right now. They're striped, there's goals up. So they're wanting to come over and use them. And again, we don't mind, but we need to go through the process. And when our teams make a reservation, they need to be able to get on the field and not have a big confrontation to make it happen.
And I guess that's where I'm heading with this is because I see the end here, right? And I see law enforcement having to get involved on a soccer field issue. So I'm curious in our interactions, have we had any, I mean, what's been the end game here? Have we had confrontations or has it been pleasant? So far, just presence has been effective. Yeah. Even the citation may not even, I guess that's what I worry about is you got your kids, you got a soccer game, and then you have a citation that escalates into a confrontation. I know you can't control it. It's not your fault. You'll do everything. I know you'll do everything you can. I just hate it. I hate the whole.
The
I know we
other-
need something to protect the reservation system. I was just curious.
The other option we did discuss was installing a wrought iron fence that then you would have to have a code to access the park. So, I mean,
We
that
have to
was
change it
kind
all
of,
the time, because people give out codes.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
exactly.
It would
And
be
it's
on a rental
costly.
basis. When someone makes a reservation or rental,
You give
with
them a
that
separate
reservation or
code.
rental would come a code. So that we could track who was there and who opened the gate. And if you didn't close the gate, when you left, that kind of thing. Keep in mind, the more our soccer program grows, the more this is going to happen.
Sure.
Because in the years currently, as the soccer program has built and gotten larger, people could come from other communities and play at Vineyard Park and wouldn't disturb youth soccer.
Right.
Because there wasn't 25 teams or what we have at this point out there practicing. There were 10. Well, now we've got 25 and it's going to continue to grow. And the people from other communities, they think they've hit a gold mine over there at Vineyard and that, it's not really visible from the road. You got to know where you're going. And they've been able to use it in the past because it really hasn't caused a scheduling conflict. Well, now it's actually causing a scheduling conflict.
Yeah, we got nice lights on it. And
Yeah.
so maybe this is the first step. And if we continue to see problems, maybe the next step is, I just hate to see us have to, escalate to involve law enforcement into this kind of situation. I'd rather see us, if it escalates, maybe move into some other mitigation so that it prevents us from ever having to call dispatch.
Hopefully one citation will fix it.
Yeah.
If that happens.
Yeah, I just hate to see us use their limited resources on responding to that. I know it's needed. Anyway. Sorry, I talked too much on it.
Any comments, Mr. Eldridge?
Yeah, what is our signage like? Is there signage on the field saying you must reserve all that?
Yes, sir. Right now that we just don't have an ordinance to back up that wording. And I'd like to add that last Wednesday, it was to the point where the Sunnyvale residents who had the field scheduled just gave up and went home. There were so many people out there that weren't supposed to be there that they couldn't get on their assigned fields. So they just called me at home and told me we're leaving. It's to the point where they're, it's built up anxiety. What's going to happen tonight when we go to the practice? And, youth soccer or anything else in the park should have no anxiety connected to it. And this is a way to quell that before it gets any worse.
Keep us posted on how things are progressing.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Finch's point, is it working or not? We need to do something different. Any other comments or discussions? Okay, this is the first reading. Council can I have a motion with respect to item number 10.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Eldridge, second by Mr. Clark to approve item number 10 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Other additional discussions? If none, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Susan, I'm assuming this will be on the consent agenda next time, right?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Guthrie. Moving on to item number 11, discuss, consider and act upon resolution 21-36. Abandoning the right-of-way Berry Road between Larkin Road and the southern town limits of Dallas Water Utilities. Ms. Jenkins, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you. Dallas Water Utilities has approached the town regarding this proposed abandonment. It would be part of their expansion of their existing treatment plant, which abuts Berry Road to the west. Currently, Berry Road is a small asphalt road. It's not in real good condition. We did have a traffic count done on it last year to try to get a handle on how much traffic is actually using that road on a daily basis, other than the traffic that's related to the treatment plant itself. And we came up with a fairly small number. I believe that information is included in your packet. Right now, currently, Dallas Water Utilities owns all of the property on both sides of Berry Road for this entire stretch. And as I mentioned, their intention in the future is to expand the treatment plant. And at that time, they would have to, or I should say, they would include Berry Road, the property where Berry Road is, into the plant. And the idea would be, rather than have the security risks and the difficulties associated with having a public road run through the plant, just abandon it, they incorporate it into the plant. Once they do this process, they would have to replat the entire property, including the existing plant property to the east that they own, and the right of way. They would all get platted into one development. Then it would become effective with the plat at that time. Of course, there are no town residences or businesses on this stretch of Berry. There are also no town utilities within the right of way. Years ago, there was a water line, but that's since been abandoned and taken out of service because there isn't anybody using it. And there are some existing private franchise utilities, and Dallas Water Utilities would have to accommodate the said utilities in some fashion when they do the replat of this property. All that having been said, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Council, let me open up for public comments. Come back to everybody. Item number 11. Is there anyone from the members of the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the council? You may do so. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Erica, anyone raising their hands?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. Council questions or discussions, right, number 11. Mr. Finch?
Question. So we know once we close, it's limited traffic. I know once we close this, the traffic's going to keep going past my house. That's right there. So I know that'll be an impact. I have spoke to my neighbors and everybody's pretty much in agreement. One question I did receive was, we have two railroad crossings, one right there at that road, and then there's another one on down Larkin. And I wonder, Lyle, if we can give any consideration, once we close that road, can we start to look at making that quiet zone? Like there is, you get sound there, and then you get sound at the next crossing. And so ultimately, I know there are certain things that go into that logistically, legally, that has to happen. But if the road is closed, can that not be included? And I have no idea what the answer is, but I just wanted to bring it up, see if we can consider starting exploring that with maybe the rail service or however we do that.
Absolutely, sir. I've not personally been involved in that type of thing in the past. I know there's a mechanism for making it happen, and we could certainly reach out to the railroad as a start to see what all would be involved in that. Absolutely.
Once we abandon the road, do we still have the legal rights, or do we need to do that investigation and any actions prior to abandoning the road?
Well, once the property is replatted as part of the development of the treatment plant, it would essentially become Dallas Water Utilities property at that point.
So do we have at that time, any rights to even implement any quiet zone type of things, or do we need to make those arrangements prior to, or can we do it once that is handed over to the Dallas Water Utilities?
Well, as I say, I will reach out to the railroad to sort of look at the mechanism of how to do that. I don't, at this point, I don't see any reason why those discussions couldn't start right away. I don't think there's any reason why you would have to wait for the abandonment to happen. So we could start that just as soon as we can get a hold of the railroad.
Yeah,
That's still in Sunnyvale town proper.
right.
So we would have the ability to be able to talk to the railroad and have skin in the game for that discussion.
Right. We wouldn't be held up in that regard in any way.
And we could also, as part of our communication to Dallas Water Utilities, ask for their cooperation and working with us on
I
that.
think that's what I'm looking for.
Sure.
Some understanding that if possible, right, there may be other legalities we cannot, I remember those
Yeah,
discussions.
I've gone
way back
through
when.
quiet zones before, and
Okay.
I mean, just to set the stage, it usually takes a very long time, and it usually has some things to do with having a protected crossing, things like that. So we can definitely work on that, Val and I.
So
Yeah, we'll look into it and see what all's involved.
one more question on that. Since I'm trying to be mindful how I say this one. You think there'll be any collaboration possible with the Dallas Water Utilities on the expenses associated with the quiet zone, if there's expenses? Can we?
We can certainly discuss that with them.
I have a question on this. I know we keep talking about this abandonment of this road. I remember not too long in the distant past, we had to pay money for like 7 miles of what used to be railroad. It was about 7 feet wide throughout our entire town. So now we have a road that we own. I mean, is there no like remuneration that could possibly go with this? Like sell them the land that the road sits on as opposed to just handing it over? I guess that's my question. Did they not propose it to us to actually purchase the land? Or are we just giving it to them?
It's public right of way. I mean, you know, the way these abandonments are normally done, I mean, they have to pay a nominal sum to the town, but it's like $1, something very, very minimal just to, as a remuneration. I don't know, Susan, if you want to weigh in any further on this.
Normally, and I haven't looked at this one, and Charles can chime in. Normally, we don't actually own it. We own we have right of way to it. And so the property is normally owned by the adjacent property owners. Charles, you want to chime in?
That's correct. The very rarely have you acquired the right of way in fee. It's usually a dedicated easement. Now, if you have a right of way, I mean, you've got most of the rights to the property, but it's not that fee simple right. So that's correct.
So the property owners on both sides are dedicated that road to public use, right? So they don't have a right either. Okay, so we are giving up basically, right? Okay. Okay. Council, are there any additional questions or discussions on this item? So Susan, you don't see a problem if we could take the action tonight? And if it's in favor of it, if that's the council decision, you don't see a problem in further negotiation with,
No, I think Councilmember Egan's point is spot on. It's still in the town limits. So, I mean, we can still advocate for the quiet zone.
right, but the expenses associated with it.
I mean, I think that we can ask them, hey, we can make that. Charles, are you there?
Yes.
We can make this part of that feedback to them, correct? Make it contingent on assisting with expenses on the quiet zone.
Yes, we can do that.
And if they're already have the arms on them, I'm trying to picture both of those. I think they both have arms, don't they? That's usually the biggest expense that you would have in going to a quiet zone, is having the protected crossing.
The quad arms, yeah.
So,
But in this case, I think all they gotta do is remove the ones that are buried. They don't have to add anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
It's
But
still in
we'll,
the,
we'll have to go through the
Yeah.
process, but we could certainly ask them as a contingency to participate in those expenses. Charles, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, ma'am.
By council approving, we are not tying your hands, right?
No,
Staff.
sir. I don't feel that way. Charles, do you want to chime in on anything? You agree with all that?
No, I agree. I have some experience in quiet zones as well. And I think it's doable. It's probably just some infrastructure that has to be installed. And so, yeah, we can explore sharing those costs with DWU.
Sanders, are you going to make a comment or you are not?
The only thing I have to add, having gone through this a few times before, is that the level of expense usually runs a couple $100,000. And, so that's what they may look at. That's what they may want to share with the town. That's been my experience in the past.
To make something quiet zone?
Yes, the arms have to be on both sides of the road. It's kind of a doubling. And it's approved by the Federal Rail Administration. So it takes the time that Susan was talking about. Definitely worthwhile. Anybody who's listened to those railroad whistles can tell you. It's worthwhile.
Interesting. If Barry really closes, then you could take the one from Barry and put it on the other road if it's not already a double. It's a double. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, we're talking off the top of my head because I haven't looked at it for
So
that
definitely,
purpose.
if the amount is expense is something anywhere near in that ballpark, I think definitely worthwhile having that conversation as part of this agreement.
Yeah, ones that I've done before have been at unprotected crossings, because normally they're tooting their horn because there's an unprotected crossing. So they're warning people, hey, we're coming, we're coming. So if they're protected crossings, usually there's less horn blowing. Is that correct, Charles? Is that your experience?
No.
No. Well,
They're blowing their horns unless they have approval from the Federal Rail Administration with the special protection with the Federal Rail
Right, so if
Administration.
it has both.
Yeah.
Right, so if it has both, then usually they don't have to.
but the one piece we need to make sure of is that DWU does not try to use that crossover point as a part of, even though we're abandoning the road, DWU can't go ahead and use it for a drive of some purpose because that forces the horn. Once the horn's gone, the street's gone, there's no way for traffic to cross over. There's no reason for the signal.
But if they are dual arms, then it could be a quiet zone, even if they kept it open. If it was protected correctly.
Yes, as long as it was permitted. Yes.
See, one of the problems with the quiet zone, as I understand it, for going through the 40 bottoms and coming up, or which way you're going, is APAC. Because you got to move the APAC plant in order to have that. You can't go across the so-called creek that feeds into ultimately the river. APAC has no access except for going over the railroad track. And that's one of the reasons why getting a quiet zone going through the bottoms is an issue. It is a quiet zone over on the 40 side. And they've got crossing arms at the ones that I know of. Now, there's one or two of them over there. Member Finch can probably speak to it because he can probably hear them when they're still on the other side of the river. But I know that there's I'm almost positive that at the intersection of 548 and the railroad tracks, I know there's crossing arms there because I went through them today. And when I've been through it before, I've not heard the horn.
So we'll, if I may just summarize, we'll share with DWU that there could be a cost as high as a couple $100,000, just depending on what's in place and what's required, that we do want to explore it, and we'll go ahead and initiate that contact with the railroad company. Is that good?
Yeah, but you still want us, staff still feel comfortable us approving this one. Okay, council, if there are other additional discussions. If not, can I have a motion with respect to item number 11, please?
Motion to approve item 11 is presented.
Motion made by Mr. Finch to approve item number 11 as presented. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Egan. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed? Motion passed 6-0. Mr. Allen is absent. What happened?
Charles asked me, can we go back and raise the tax rate to play for the quiet zone? Good one,
Charles, we already said, either you negotiate that or no deal. Okay, item number 13. Discuss, consider and act upon a bid from Reliable Paving Incorporated in the amount of $2,431,602 for the 2021 asphalt rehab and repair phase 1 project and authorizing the town manager to execute the contract.
Mayor.
Mr. Jenkins?
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
did you skip item 12?
I probably did.
Which one did you? Yeah, we skipped 12.
My apologies to the council and the members in the audience. Item number 12, discuss, consider and act upon a bid from B&B Paving Incorporated in the amount of $120,960 for the Clay Road Pavement Rehabilitation Project and authorize the town manager to execute the contract. Mr. Jenkins, council, don't say I didn't try to rush the whole project, okay? It's all Rachel now.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, Council. The town had solicited bids for this project earlier this year, about a couple months ago. This is to remove and replace several sections of the existing concrete pavement of Clay Road where it's in full repair. It's not the entire road, it's just certain targeted sections to try to get it within a reasonable budget, given what we had planned for. We went through the standard bidding process. The low bid was from B&B Paving in the amount as specified in the agenda item. B&B has done previous work within the town before, and the town is confident that they will give us a good project for the price and we'll get a good value for it. And we would recommend that y'all authorize this contract. That having been said, I'd be happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Let me open up for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience, my bad, my apologies again. Sorry. I moved the mic. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Is anyone raising their hand?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. Mr. Jenkins, I have a couple of questions. So I know we had a proposal earlier in the council and we decided to cancel the whole deal. Now we have a more palatable, maybe a right word,
More focused.
proposal. I just want to make sure, does this, the current offered solution, does it completely remedy what needs to be done on this road?
This is intended to really hit the worst sections of Clay where we have the moisture issues. And Brian, I don't want to speak for you if you want to jump in on this. It's again, as I said, it's not the entire road. There are still going to be some panels that have some relatively minor issues, but this is intended to get the most severe, the worst particular locations that are causing the biggest distress to traffic. In addition to the actual concrete repair, we have also included in the design some French drains to be installed under the pavement sections that we're replacing, because one of the reasons why we have these issues in the first place is because there's excessive moisture in the soil under these roads. The idea is to put the French drains in, to get the water out from under the soil so that we have a more solid base. We would also be doing stabilization of the subgrade underneath it. And the pavement section will be a little bit thicker than what's been out there in the past. So it's really intended to target sort of the area that needs it the most.
So let me try to, I know you gave me a lot of technical details and I appreciate that, but I'm just trying to pull a little bit more at a top level, right? I know it's not going to fix all the Clay Road. I get that, right? But when staff approached council, I forgot a few months back, you had this project scope in mind. Does this proposed solution meet what you had concerns with? Or we ended up in reducing the scope to stay within the budget?
We reduced the scope to meet the budget.
Does that mean I should be expecting you to come back in 6 months and asking for more, or this will suffice? I'm not asking to look at the crystal ball and make a prediction. I'm not. I'm looking for reasonable, practical judgment, right? So I'm asking for.
I would suspect that there probably will be something coming back in the future, but we're going to try to utilize what we've done in the past with just regular maintenance. We changed out, I don't know how many panels you can go out there now, see 6 or 8, but we've already done just through the regular maintenance process. And what we want to do is try to continue some of that on the more northern lanes. This focus on the more southern lanes where we have the most subsidence from the water. And to answer a previous question from Mr. Clark back then, I still don't know if there's a spring under there, but I did find some old photos where there was ponds for sure visible, especially in those southernmost lanes.
And remember that this road doesn't go off the DMAIC. It just gets assessed and rescored. So if it falls back into the area that we're working on, then more would be done, but this should
Can
get
be
it
a
out.
more staff manageable
Yes,
bucket,
yeah, it'll
Got
get
it.
it out of the red zone.
technical term.
Yes, sir. Correct.
So one other question, I was reading through the proposal, there's an alternative 1 and alternative 2. What is the difference?
Alternative 1 was to keep the same amount of pavement thickness, which I believe is currently 8 inches. And then we would do lime and cement stabilization to sort of beef up the subgrade, if you will. Then alternative 2, which if I remember correctly, alternative 2 was the low bid of the 2, was to rather than do the lime cement stabilization, we would actually go in with a 10-inch thick concrete pavement section. And if I remember correctly, that was the section that was that was the alternate that was actually a better value. So it's basically 2 different ways of accomplishing the same goal, but going by the alternative 2, the thicker pavement section was a savings to the lime cement stabilization in this case.
So the saving is $7,000. That is money, but not too much in the big picture. But as far as the technical solution, longevity, road performance, all of them, which option is better, 2 or 1?
As I say, it's not necessarily one is better than the other. It's just 2 different ways of accomplishing the same goal. It's not sort of a hard and fast where one is necessarily head and shoulders above the other. They will both accomplish the goal that we're looking for here. It's just which way is more cost effective.
Okay. Because I'm just going to speak for one council member of the 7, right? If this $7,000 gets you a better solution, I personally am comfortable going with that, but that's why I want to give it staff that option, at least 1 person of the 7, right? I just want to make sure that we don't necessarily go the cheapest. We want to be cost conscious, no doubt, but I just want to be a better solution, longer term solution.
I was just gonna say, I do understand the concerns on it. And as I say, making this kind of choice, it's not unusual. Sometimes it just kind of depends on the size of the project, the amount of the paving. Sometimes one becomes more economical than the other. Again, both of these solutions will work. They will do what we're needing them to do. It's just in this particular case, the thicker pavement is a better value, but it's still going to do what we need it to do.
Okay.
Mayor, I think this is a Ford versus Chevrolet argument. Both of them will get you down the road at 60 miles an hour. They'll get you there comfortably unless you just have a preference for one over the other. As long as the subgrade and the French drain is still going to remain the same.
Yes, sir, that is correct. The French drain is going to go in regardless of which option.
So what's going to support this as a foundation is going to be adequate. In fact, quite frankly, to me, it sounds like we're getting a little bit more for a little bit less.
Okay.
And I don't understand that, but I'm good with it because I think it's a smart decision.
That's a good example, Mark. Anybody else have any comments or questions for staff? The better solution for less price. That's always a good one. Count staff, any additional comments you have? Susan, you have anything else to add? Okay. Council, if there are no other discussions, I call for a motion on item number 12.
Approve, motion approved.
Second.
There you go.
Motion made by Mr. Eldridge and second by Finch to approve item number 12 was presented. Everyone heard the motion? Other additional discussions? If none, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Rachel, can I move on to 13 now? Discuss, consider and act upon a bid from Reliable Paving Incorporated in the amount of $2,431,602 for the 2021 asphalt rehab and repair phase 1 project and authorize the town manager to execute the contract. Mr. Jenkins, will I be again, sir?
Yes, sir. Again, thank you. Yes, as you said, this project is for the rehabilitation and or repair of multiple asphalt roadways within the town. I believe your packet contains a detailed list of the various roadway sections. All of these roadways were previously identified and discussed and ranked during our DMAIC process as being in need of attention, red zone roadways, if you will. In the interest of economy, of scale, and ease of management, we decided to lump all of these multiple projects into one bid. As with the other project, it was bid as part of the standard process. The bid amount was the low bid from Reliable Paving. Again, similar to B&B, they've done previous work in the town. Staff has confidence that they will give us a good project for the budget. One thing I would like to point out is that although this contract is for multiple roadway sections, we would work with them. I mean, it's going to be done one section at a time. We're not going to be doing all these roads at once. So we will work with the paving company to keep everybody up to date as to which section is being worked on, when to try to minimize the disruption to the public. That having been said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Let me open up for public comments. If there are any questions, if anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Erica, anyone raising their hand?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. Council, questions or discussion item number 13, Mr. Freeman.
Yeah, so I just want to walk through this bidding process, or this number we have. Multiple projects, one price, got it here. Fast forward in 8 months, right? Construction costs continue to go up. At some point, we're going to be kind of running through this $2.4 million. We may have a road or two that aren't finished. Can this company come back to us and say, hey, I know we said 2.4, but there have been extreme cost overruns. We can't finish the final road or the last road and a half because of what's going on.
Well, under normal circumstances, I mean, the bid that they've given us and the prices they've given us are what they're obligated to go by. Now, if we on our initiative change the scope, or if we decide to add a roadway that may not be on this list now, that would be one thing. But if cost materials go up moving forward, they're locked in on this unit price. Now, they would have the right to ask us if we would consider raising that unit price, but we would be under no obligation to do so.
Well, testing's not included, right?
That's correct. The testing would be a separate, that would be a relatively small fee. This is just for the construction. Then we would have to set up a separate contract with a geotechnical firm to do the testing, but that's going to be a relatively minor item compared to the overall cost.
That's your question, Mr. Freeman.
Excellent, thank you.
So geotech is going to be our responsibility, or it's going to be?
Well, we would set up the contract with another firm. Yes, normally the town does do that on a public project, similar to what we're doing on our Collins project at this time.
Is that to get an independent assessment? Is that the reason why?
That's correct. They would take samples of the asphalt as it's placed, test it to make sure it's the proper thickness, the proper strength.
It's
And-
part of your approval process.
Right. It's standard, and they would submit it. They would report the test back to us, and we would have records of the test.
So is this I'm not changing the topic, but on the trip road, you talked about digging deep and getting some geotechnical. Is that same type of? Okay.
Yes.
One last question I have on a timeline, and you said you will keep us posted. I'm assuming if I know Susan, she will have this on a Gantt chart or something. We'll have that scheduled here in the next few weeks. How about warranty?
Beg your pardon, sir?
Warranty on the road.
There's a 2-year warranty on this project as similar to other projects. So
2 year from when?
2 year from the date that we accept it. So when the roadway is finished or when the overall project is finished, we have a walkthrough. We do a final inspection, both myself and Brian. Once we're satisfied that the road has been built correctly, then we would accept it. And that's when that 2-year clock starts. And then if some kind of fault develops, say 6 months after that, the contractor is obligated to come out and repair it at their cost.
You feel comfortable with the 2-year warranty?
Yes, sir, I do. It's industry standard.
Mr. Finch?
Question, Lyle, do we have a prioritized schedule on what roads will be done first? Vested interest in one of these, I get feedback all the time, and so I'm just a little curious.
We don't have a schedule of exactly which roads will be done in exactly which order. If there is interest and concern, I mean, we're certainly more than happy to have that discussion offline. But no, we don't have a prioritized list for each individual project.
When does it start?
But once y'all approve this award, then I would put together a conformed contract. I mean, y'all have the blank contract as part of your packet. We would then go in and add the names, the dollar amounts, and then it's just a question of getting all the necessary signatures, and then we could get this project kicked off. So we would certainly try to expedite that to get it done as quickly as possible.
October-ish?
We would shoot for that. I'm hesitant to say with absolute 100% certainty, but we would certainly make every effort to get it as soon as possible in October, if at all possible.
Okay.
Of course.
Mr. Clark, sorry.
So this 2-year warranty, have we had those 2-year warranties in the past?
Yes, sir, we have.
So what I'm wondering about is when we redid Jobson between
The
Right, so
county,
Dallas
the county had no warranty, sir.
the county has no warranty.
No, sir.
Okay.
Right.
Like,
Yes, I mean,
that
I don't
was-
want to,
As we all know, that road within like 3 weeks. Right. Okay.
that's one reason why we're doing this differently.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad we have this warranty. I'm disappointed in what they did with Jobson Road. So
I understand where you're coming from, sir.
Okay, other additional questions or discussion on item number 13? Okay, there are none. I call for a motion on 13.
Approve 13 as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Mr. Eldridge to approve item number 13 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? If none, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. See, it's getting faster and faster. People are approving it really quick. It's getting late. Item number 14, discuss, consider and act upon placing an ordinance adopting the tax rate on the agenda for first reading on Thursday, September 16, 2021, and for second reading and final adoption Friday, 17, 2021. That is this Thursday, 16, that's 7 p.m. And I believe Friday, 17th at 8 a.m. Okay. Do you need to speak, Ms. Shuri?
Yes, council. I just will make that correction. In your agenda packet, it had 0.4567. I will change that to proposal to adopt a tax rate of 0.4493.
Thank you, ma'am.
That-
Okay, let me open up for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber, or can anyone raise their hands?
No, sir.
No hands raised. We're going to close the public comments. Council, are there any questions on this topic? So we just approving to place this on the agenda for first reading. That's all we're doing.
That's right. State law requires that we take action, and the action is we're putting it on the agenda for.
Rachel, this is not one we had to approve one at a time either, right? Roll call.
No, sir,
That's
that'll
next
be
time?
on Thursday and Friday. Susan, do we need to point out that Thursday's agenda is already posted?
And I'll have to make that in the motion.
Is that a separate item or part of this one?
So what I'm saying is Thursday's agenda had to be posted by 7 PM today. So when you see that agenda, it's posted with a 0.4567. So in your motion on Thursday, you're gonna have to give direction again. Or in your motion, you're gonna have to change it to the 0.4493
Tonight
that
or
it-
Thursday?
Thursday. But I just wanted to point that out, that your agenda posted for Thursday says 0.4567
Because it had to be posted by
by 7
by
today.
7
Yes, ma'am.
tonight.
Okay, so tonight, this agenda is just about setting the first reading and second reading dates. Okay, council, if you're good with it, can I have a motion on item number 14?
Motion to approve item 14.
Second,
Motion made by Mr. Eldred, second by Clark to approve item number 14 as presented. Everyone heard the motion. Other additional discussions?
so on Thursday, can we rediscuss this tax rate?
Then we already, yeah, I'll let Rachel answer the questions.
Fridays will be posted.
Okay.
The additional discussions. Okay, if not, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Motion passed. Moving on to item number 15, discuss consent act upon first reading of ordinance 21-19, amending ordinance 21-10, which made appropriation for the support of the town of Sunnyvale for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020 and ending September 30, 2021, and amending the annual budget of the town of Sunnyvale for the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
I'm going to be taking that
Ms.
one. so-
Guthrie, good evening, ma'am.
Hi, so obviously this information is not new to you. We've talked about this as far back as your budget retreat. But we did finally receive notification that we had been awarded $1.695 million from the Texas Division of Emergency Management for the Corona Local Fiscal Recovery Fund as a result of the American Rescue Plan Act. So we call these ARPA funds. The way this works is that we get it in 2 allocations. So we've already received our first allocation, which was for $847,551.84 on August 20th. So what we're doing tonight is we're amending the budget to allow that money to come into the budget. This will be first reading of the ordinance tonight. Second reading will be, I think we put it, did we put it on Thursday's agenda? Okay, no. Okay, so we'll put it on the 27th agenda. And that's good because then it'll be in this year's budget and then it'll roll forward to next year's budget. So these funds, we've spent hours and hours going to webinars and seminars and doing research on how we can use these funds. And we have an internal team that deals with CARES Act and ARPA funds. And so I just want to share with you kind of the 4 broad categories. And remember, I mean, there's a whole huge book on this. So this is a massive oversimplification, but I want to share with you kind of the broad parameters of how we can utilize these funds. So one of them is to respond to the public health emergency or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, or aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. 2, to respond to workers performing essential work during COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers. C, for provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue due to COVID-19. And D, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So those are the really broad categories that we can use this funding for. There were a couple of key questions that I had asked, and one of them was, may recipients use funds to pay for vaccine incentive programs? And Rule 2.12 actually points it out specifically that these funds can be used for that purpose. So we had proposed, and again, we talked about this during the budget retreat, but we fine-tuned the numbers. So to get to the $847,000, we included the design, excuse me, let me get to the correct page. The design of the sewer system for Trip Road is an estimated cost of $40,000. The construction of the sewer for Trip Road, an estimated cost of $600,000. So both of those fall under that water sewer infrastructure category. SCADA for the water system, SCADA, I can never remember what it stands for, Brian.
It's a software, right?
It's supervisory control and data acquisition.
Yeah, so
Oh,
it helps them monitor
makes
our
sense.
water system. So that's an estimated cost of $100,000. And it will really help us with management and monitoring the pump station and the water treatment plant remotely. And then PPE, personal protective equipment, estimated cost of $5,000. And then defibrillators for town buildings and for the police squad cars, an estimated cost of $15,000. And an employee incentive for vaccination at an estimated cost of $87,000. Any of these line items, these are just broad categories, so we can build the budget. Any of these could be far less or more than we're estimating. And those funds could flow back and forth between those line items. The last item that I mentioned, I would not anticipate coming close to that amount. So those extra funds would, allow for additional defibrillators or additional PPE or any cost overruns for the sewer project. So based upon that, we would ask that you accept this budget amendment in the amount of $847,551.84 and amend the current fiscal year budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so this is the general category of funds. Thank you, Susan. Let me open up for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so at this time. If you're joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. Come on. Good evening, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't know which topic you were here for. I could have put this forward.
Thank you. My
Could
name
you
is
state your
Tyler.
name and address for the record, sir?
Sure. Tyler Moore, 107 Texas Circle. And thank you for allowing me to speak. I wasn't sure if I was speaking to, is this number 15 on the agenda?
This is item number, 15, yes, sir.
15, and it looks like it plays over to number 16.
Yeah, 16 is to
Okay.
approve the town manager on the vaccine pay. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I appreciate it. I see a couple friendly faces over here. I'm new to the community, but glad to be
welcome
here.
then.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really speaking towards that grant. I appreciate you stating the different categories of that grant because that wasn't really clear and I was trying to do a little bit of homework on it. So my main point is where the money is going to be spent towards the vaccine. And I think what the numbers that I'm seeing, different things I'm reading is somewhere around 85% of the people that have said they're not going to take the vaccine aren't going to take the vaccine. And so this seems to me like more of a reward for, hey, I did take the vaccine more than it is an incentive to actually get someone to take the vaccine. And so I would just like you guys to consider that, if you wouldn't mind, just before you vote, ponder what that really is going to do. I think what's really interesting is that I didn't hear in those top 4 categories the ability to use those for those dollars. But when you asked that question, it went back to, I think, 2.1 of, I can't remember the code, so, or whatever it was. So I apologize. But I think really when you think about what we can do as a community, so if I'm opposed to it, what could we do? What if we could give a solution to help with that? I'm not sure that incenting someone to take a vaccine that's already taken it, that's more of a reward. I think maybe incenting your people at the city with extra paid time off. If you don't miss this year because you didn't get sick with COVID, good for you. You get some extra time. And those are ways that you can incent someone without actually having to spend direct money. What I think would be more important with those dollars is, and I'm not sure where this fits in those 4 categories, is you've got a lot of business people in this town that really were hurt by the inability to finish projects, keep the doors open. Maybe they got funded for projects that they had already borrowed money for, that they had interest carry. I would love to see an opportunity to have some kind of grant money extended to them in lieu of something that I think is not really going to accomplish what you want it to accomplish. I love the opportunity to help with defibrillators and the other things that you talked about. You know, I have no idea about the sewer system. I'm not, you know, I haven't been here and I don't know about all that stuff. But as far as incentive to get a vaccine, I think that's something that we probably need to really consider some other options for. So that's what I've got to say about that. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Yep. Thank you.
And Mr. Moore, Burton at the end of the table is our Director of Economic Development. And we do have a small business incentive related to COVID available. So if you know of anybody that needs it, please hook them up with Burton. We've been trying to give that money away. Great idea.
Yeah, we've been trying to give their money away and we couldn't find enough takers on that money. Yeah, okay. So, yes, sir. So let me open up for public comments. If there are anyone else who would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so at this time. Ms. Park, were you pointing fingers?
I was wondering if Al wants to come speak. He's in the audience right now. He sat here for 3 hours, so I was gonna make sure he had the opportunity to come speak.
He just
for us.
enjoyed the discussion. That's all.
Yes, yes.
Tyler made his point, I think.
Thank you. Erica, anyone else? Anyone raising their hands?
No, sir.
Okay. No one is raising their hand. So I'm going to close the public comments on item number 15. There's a very related item on 16. Council, any discussions on item number 15?
So Mayor, for what I understand,
Mr. Finch?
thank you. We're approving the budget item, and then we're going to talk specifically about what Mr. Moore talked about here in this vaccine incentive in the next item, right? So if we want to talk about that, we can wait till the next item. Just wanted to clarify.
So this is about accepting the $847,000 into,
And budgeting to spend it. And then the next item, you can give me direction on that category.
okay. So the, if we pass this item, are we committing to that 1, 2, 3, 4 items you mentioned, or we are not? Or all we saying we accept the money and we spend it, but how to spend it is separate
You could give me further direction on that last item,
on this agenda item or
on the
next?
incentive. Yes, sir.
Okay. Council, are there additional discussions on this topic? Okay. So did you have an item? Action?
I'm about to make a motion.
Okay. If not, can I have a motion item number 15?
Motion to approve item 15 is presented.
Motion made by Mr. Finch to approve item number 15 as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Clark. Sorry, I heard this one. My left ear is better than the right ear. So, motion made by Mr. Finch, seconded by Mr. Clark to approve item number 15 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Mr. Allen is absent. Okay, let's go on to the item number 16. That is discuss, consider, and act upon resolution 21-39, a resolution of the town council, Town of Sunnyvale, approving a vaccination incentive pay program and authorize the town manager to adopt a COVID-19 vaccination incentive policy. Ms. Guthrie?
Yes, sir. So many of the benchmark cities that we work with, I've been in communication with them, and many of them chose on this kind of category to do a hazard pay item. And we greatly considered that. And, I've been talking with the mayor about this for the last few weeks. I think in the end, we leaned towards this as a risk abatement strategy because although our community is like 85% vaccinated, our actual employee base is a fraction of that. And I don't have actual data because we haven't asked for proof, but anecdotally, I would estimate we're probably maybe 30% vaccinated. this is a risk to our community because if we have just the number of firefighter paramedics that we need. And if we have one person out and they actually infect the rest of their shift, it's a really serious situation. The same is true in public works. We only have 8 people who do water, sewer, wastewater, streets. So if one person in that crew gets it and spreads it, it's a very serious situation. And our numbers have been rising in terms of exposure over the last several weeks. So I really did change course mid-stride and thought really we need to take more aggressive risk mitigation strategies. And I'd like to try this. And if nobody takes me up on it, then we can go back and change courses and do the hazard pay approach as other communities have done. But I would like to try to move the needle on our vaccinations at this point. So.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Guthrie. Let me open up for public comments. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the council, you may do so. If you are joining us via Zoom, you may raise your hand. No one is coming forward from the chamber. Erica, anyone raising their hands?
Yes, we have, well, she put it back down. Let me see if she wants to speak.
If there's anyone calling in via Zoom, you may raise your hand.
Luann, did you want to speak?
I don't, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So
Ma'am,
as far as,
name and address for the record, please.
yes, 280 Benwick Drive, Sunnyvale, Texas.
What's your last name?
Marino, I'm sorry, Luann Marino.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, speak, ma'am.
So my concern is even with the school district, we kind of ran into the same type of situation. And initially, we opened the schools with no masks or not a mandate. And then just off of public pressure with parents and such, they implemented the temporary with the increase of some of these cases. They've temporarily implemented the masks again. And then with the recent school board meeting, there were a few parents that had spoken up about it, even though it wasn't on the docket for that day, and expressed some concerns about having it because some of these parents have special needs kids. And as far as infection rates, they went over some stats there as well. And it didn't seem like a significant amount that as far as people getting infected, that they were being hospitalized, much less dying from this vaccine, and not the vaccine, the COVID. I'm so sorry. I'm very nervous at the moment. But anyways, so we're back at having the freedom of choice of not wearing a mask. So that just leads me to believe that it's great to offer that incentive, but those funds, I believe, in my opinion, also could be used for other things. I know it's a dangling carrot to go ahead and get the incentive, but it is back to the person's choice on whether they want to get the vaccine. And obviously, since as Susan Guthrie has just mentioned, that maybe about 30% of the employees are vaccinated, they're obviously making that choice. And this vaccine has been around, 9 months now? So that kind of gives you a heads up that they probably won't get the vaccine. So all I'm just saying is we could probably use that money in other areas versus incentivizing to get the vaccine, when even though, you're probably going to give it to somebody, you're not going to be off for weeks at a time. So I don't see that there would be a major staff issue, if that makes any sense.
Is that it, Ms. Moreno?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for calling me.
Mayor, I did forget to add one thing.
Yes, Ms. Guthrie.
Currently, we have 3 employees out due to COVID. So it's not that it's not touching our team. And if no one takes us up on it, the money is still there. We can turn around and reallocate it for another purpose. And we can do that rather quickly. in this resolution, I set a date of a deadline of November 1st. So they at least have to start the process of getting the vaccine no later than November 1st, or the money is no longer available and we can reallocate it for another purpose. So it's kind of my last ditch effort. I've been trying for months to get everybody, but we do have people who just, haven't acted on it. And so, I'm hoping that maybe this money will make a difference. And it is critical to our risk assessment and response for the city, that as many of our employees get vaccinated as possible. So,
Okay, Erica, anyone else raising their hand?
No, sir.
I'm going to to the comments from the chamber, to the comments from the Zoom call. If there's no one else is raising their hands, I'm going to close the public comments. Council discussions or questions on item number 16. Mr. Freeman.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. We talked about hazard pay. So blanket pay, like pay increase for all employees regardless of vaccination status.
that's correct. That's what other cities have done.
That's what other cities are doing. Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious as to what we were talking about with hazard pay and kind of where that stood. So, all right, thank you.
Anyone else with comments or questions? Mr. Finch.
So, yes, Mr. Mayor, a couple comments. So when this first came out on the agenda, had a lot of conversation about it, time to think about it. And it's kind of personal to me because in my paying job, I'm responsible for a lot of our COVID implementation strategies and risk mitigation strategies. And we as a company are not incentivizing. And I use that kind of as the basis for initially probably opposing this suggestion. But the more I thought about the differences between a business and the city, I came to a different conclusion. As a city, Susan has pointed out that we have certain responsibilities to our citizens to ensure that we can provide public safety, water, sewer, basic services to our citizens. And I believe as a council, one of the things we're being asked to do is to look at our risk mitigation strategy. What is in our toolbox? As Mr. Moore pointed out, are there other things we can do? What is in our toolbox that we can use to mitigate our risk? And I'm not for mandating vaccine. I am for personal choice. This proposal does not infringe upon the personal choice individuals have. I fully respect that. But what it does is it adds another tool to our toolbox to be able to mitigate the risk to our citizens. If we can incentivize an employee, say fireman, policeman, public works, anyone, to get the vaccine, and it reduces our risk of interrupting basic services to our citizens. I almost feel like that we would be remiss if we didn't add it to our toolbox. It's just one way. And as Susan has pointed out, if employees decide not to participate, it's still their choice. I respect that. But then we can take these funds and we'll be able to use them other places. And I do appreciate Mr. Moore's point on reversing that to employees that already have it. And so I recognize that. I struggle with that a little bit too, because they made the choice and they did it. But when I look at the overall possible benefit to the incentive to everyone else, I see that as a greater reward in the program, right? That we're able to take people who may be on the fence about it and incentivize them. I have no idea how many people are going to take it, but I do just see it as a tool in our toolbox to be able to incentivize and overall use it as risk reduction, just in layers of risk reduction. Talk about it. I just think that is our greater responsibility. If there are other tools we can use to reduce the risk, I think Susan would be open to hearing it. I sure would be too, because I have a business that we do the same thing. And so if somebody has some other ideas on how we can do it, because everybody's pulling everything they can out of the toolbox to try and figure out how to mitigate risk. And this is just one of them. It does not impact freedom of choice, it does not impact person's decision or your stance on the vaccine. That doesn't matter. What matters is how we can ensure that we are able to provide basic services because we are thin. I mean, you have 3 out now. If you lose 3 police or a couple of firemen, I'm sorry, we're in trouble. And unfortunately, there are quarantines that have to happen based on this stuff. And so if there is some way, not to belabor the point, if there is some way that we can incentivize to reduce the overall risk to our community, I would support it, and I support this.
Thank you, Mr. Finch. Are there additional discussions or comments? Mr. Egan?
You know, this is a tough decision. I've struggled with this one even before these concepts and ideas came out. And I appreciate where Member Finch is coming from. We don't have enough data to know at this stage of the game. If we provide the incentive, are we going to get half of the people who have not had the vaccine yet to take it, either for religious reasons, personal choice, all these other things? Well, yeah, we may have a large percentage of employees who have not been vaccinated. Maybe great, well, as you said, greater than the population in Sunnyvale. But I struggle. And yeah, this is money that came from the federal government, but it also came out of every one of our pockets. And everybody has the same problem as the group of population, every community, every city. Dallas is no different. Mesquite's no different. All of us, all the communities have problems, and private businesses have the same thing. You know, back when I used to teach engineers how to put together drawings in such a way and why you did calculations certain ways is because if I got hit in the train wreck tomorrow, they could still move forward. And yeah, that's important, but that's a part of business. That's a part of life. I have trouble incentivizing people for things that they could have already done. I would rather incentivize, if I'm going to incentivize, if we incentivized everybody in the town, regardless of whether or not they got the vaccination, I would feel a whole lot more better about it. Because the ones that did, they got a bonus for doing it. The ones that didn't, that may motivate them to go do it. But you really don't know until November 1st. And while granted, I like it's November 1st, I think if I were going to incentivize any of those employees, I would say, if you go and get the shot, and this again, I totally agree with personal choice. If you go get the shot, you got the afternoon off that you get the shot on. If you feel sick the next day, you got the day off, because that happens. It happened to me. It happened to my wife. Most everybody I know either shot 1 or shot 2 if they got the Moderna or the other one, not necessarily the J&J, Pfizer. They were sick on one of the 2. And generally after about 12 to 15 hours, I went home, went to sleep after my second shot. I just felt it. Went home, went to sleep. 6 hours later, actually the next morning, I was out and doing stuff and had no real ill effects of it. So I can see where those who do get the shot could have an issue with it. And I would incentivize that aspect of it, but it's not a financial monetary thing. And I would rather put that money into something that would be longer term value to the town. I hate to say that, and trust me guys, y'all know, this council knows, I back the employees in a lot of cases. In fact, most every case, I will back the employees 100%. This is one where I can't go there because it doesn't back the employees who have gotten the shot. Well, the way I understood it, it was only going to be incentivizing the ones that went and got the shot. So even if they got it back in February, okay, I didn't get that part of it. So as long as you've gotten the shot, you're there. However, you're then penalizing those for religious reasons or whatever reason for not getting the shot. And I don't think you can't not hire somebody for religious reasons. So how does that come into play? That gets to be a difficult thing to deal with. I'm pretty sure Mr. Anderson could probably kind of speak to that, but my one concern also was the HIPAA aspect of it, but I understand through the way the legislation was put together that HIPAA requirements are not a part of it, but
On the HIPAA, it's voluntary whether you come forward or not. So I'm not as worried about the HIPAA.
yeah.
As far as the incentive goes, because it can be measured against a public good or reducing the risk, as Mr. Finch has said. And I think you can make the argument that you can differentiate between the people who are helping you to reduce risk versus those who, for whatever reason, are not able to do so. So it's a good point. It's a close point, but I would
Okay.
follow.
And again, this is for discussion. I'm just, to a certain degree, devil's advocate only for the purposes of discussion more than it is anything. Because like Member Finch said, there's not the right answer. We don't know what the right answer is, which I've said all along. And the total paradigm of life in our society, not just in the United States, but worldwide, is changing. And we're all still learning. And again, I don't know that any of us have the right, we try to discuss these ideas. And the reason I bring up the idea or the discussions I bring up was purely for the sake of trying to get the gears turning somewhere, somehow. Something's going to come up and hit us. Mr. Tyler said it perfectly, and spoke to exactly what I was thinking as he was speaking. And again, I don't know. Maybe I've stirred some gelatin up in somebody's mind and can give me a direction that makes me feel better about this. And again, it's not that I don't want to not help the employees. I think it's important to help the employees at every turn. I would like to see long-term effects. This is long-term because you probably won't die, but I would rather see more tangible, more concrete things that go to that the money can be used to.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. Freeman?
I kind of have 2 points. One, if it incentivizes one person to go get a shot, it makes it safer, right? I mean, we could argue about what the stats are saying these days, and I mean, I'm complete with that. I'll also agree, if you're not going to get the shot, you're not getting the shot. It's not going to get them off the fence. But if there's one person who will go get it, I will say this, when you throw that carrot out there, if no one takes it, I am completely against hazard pay. We've all in the last 9 months have had to get up and go back to work, and we know the world that we're walking into. We can, I'm sure here at the town, in my office, there's precautions that you're required to take when you're in common areas, when you're doing this, when you're doing whatever. I'm completely against going that direction with this money. Like I said, I think that it's going to be more of paying people who've already taken it, because I don't think it's really going to move the needle on it. But like I said, one person, 2 people, I don't see where the harm in that comes from.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any other comments? Mr. Clark?
This is a very hot topic, anything, masks, vaccine has been splitting our country. When I heard about this, a few days ago, I was very against it, because I want people to make their own choice, and I'm not for really paying them in that manner, just to try to bribe them to go get shots. But in talking to Susan, talking to just different people who have gotten, trying to look at both sides. I think for the risk mitigation reasons, I think it's a strategy that we need to try to take. I've talked to my neighbors, Tyler came and spoke. I've talked to other neighbors and other residents, and a lot of people are against it. A lot of people don't like it, and I totally agree. And I'm very close to being on that side. But one thing I do want to do also is support our town manager, and she runs the staff. She runs the team here. It's her team. This is what she's asking for. And when we brought her on board a few years ago, I think we all said we would support you. And so I think in doing this, I think we're supporting her. It is a hard decision, like Jonathan said, if one person gets the shot, maybe that's a little less risk out there. I don't know if it will move the needle much. People that haven't gotten it probably won't get it. But if one or two go get it, we can really mitigate some risk. I think it'll be worth it. We are thin. We were just talking about budget an hour ago or so, and we are on a tight budget. And if we lose some police officers, if we lose some firefighters, I think the town can really suffer. Our residents can really suffer. So if we can try to keep people a little safer or a little healthier, the staff a little healthier, maybe they'll still get sick, but maybe instead of being out a week, they'll be out 3 days. Maybe they'll get back to work a little sooner. So,
Kevin, I still think the days you're out is mandated by law.
True. But yeah, so
We have two different protocols. One's for vaccinated and one's for unvaccinated. And the vaccinated protocol, if you're just exposed, you can keep working with a mask on. But if you're not vaccinated, I have to take you out for 7 days. So it's a huge operational impact. And I think somebody brought up the idea of vacation, and the city of Dallas is doing that. They're rewarding, I think it's a week vacation if you get vaccinated, which is probably for some people equivalent to the $1,000. The issue with that is I need people at work. I can't give people more time off because we're just right on that fine line of being correctly staffed as it is. So, but yeah, it's a very different protocol if they're vaccinated versus not vaccinated.
Let me throw a premise.
Mr. Egan?
Take the $1,000 out. Using the argument, and I understand what Mr. Freeman said, if you get one more vaccinated, but take the dollar value out, take the bonus out. You still have the same problem. We could just as easily wipe out a crew from the fire department. We could just as easily wipe out, because those who aren't going to get vaccinated are still there. And you could wipe out the whole police department. You could wipe out the shift of the fire department, or a shift of the police department, a shift of the fire department. You could wipe out Sherry's group. You could wipe out anybody's group within underneath the town hall. Forget the $1,000. So that's where I'm having trouble with that argument. And I just struggle with the $1,000 bonus reward for hoping to improve behavior. None of us know. None of us have the crystal ball that we can look inside of and figure out what's going to happen for those that do get vaccinated or have been vaccinated, those who haven't been vaccinated, and what's going to happen within communities. But, maybe that money is held in reserve to try to find some part-time person or group of people. Although in the police department, the fire department, that's difficult because they don't want people going to different departments and filling in. I realize it's hard. I totally realize it's hard. And in the end, we're only talking about $87,000 potentially, roughly, number that it's right. If every single person did. I still haven't heard the right answer. I'm still leaning toward, I can't go down this road unless we're applying that money to tangible things that have to be COVID related, but tangible things that will help more PPE. I'm sure we've saturated every facility and vehicle we can think of with BFIMs. It's just one minute.
Thank you, Mr. Eakin. Cheryl, you going to say something, sir?
Yeah, this has been a big topic, especially in my house, because I'm married to a medical provider. So we have these great debates on medicine and practicality versus legislation, right? So much to Mr. Finch's point, my paying job, right? We have layers of risk mitigation into effect, right? Because there is no such thing as like one solution solves it all, right? Security, we talk about being the locked door versus the open window. Right, it doesn't make much sense to get a locked door, even if it's steel and bulletproof. If your window's open, what's the point? Walk through there, right? So PPE, it's great, right? Vaccine's another tool, right? And I like to incentivize people to do it right. And I'm to your point, I wish good behavior was just a reward in itself, but unfortunately, that's not always the case, right? Sometimes people got to be incentivized. That's it.
So let me make my comments also. Susan sent out an email to our council roughly 3 weeks back. I can't remember exactly. My immediate response was, no, heck no, I will not support it. That was my position. And I held on to that almost till last week. Several discussions happened, many discussions happened. One of the questions was Mr. Moore mentioned about time off. And Susan said that is an option we have to incentivize people to take vaccine. That's an option. Again, I do believe in the benefit of vaccine, especially after the FDA has approved. I do support it, and I have taken personally. I do support the personal choices, religious freedom. Anybody who wants to pick, choose, does not want to take, that's totally up to them. I have family members who are medical, who pushes all different directions. Then I have family members on the other side who refuse to take it. And that's, it's almost every dinner is it's a discussion. It's a very heated discussion in our house. And I try to get up the topic, but it just keeps on happening. So time off we talked about. Then the question was impact to staff. Susan brought up the issue of protocol. If an employee is vaccinated and they are exposed to COVID, then they have protocol, they have to test so often, and they have to wear a mask and come back to work because they're considered less risky. But if they're not vaccinated, the protocol says they got to be off for 14 days or some number of days. So there's an impact to town. Then the question is, why can't we take this money and put in something more tangible, sewer system, anything? I think they're all great use of it. But I go back and listen to Mr. Finch also talking about, right? He said, probably the number one responsibility of town is to provide health and safety of citizens. I don't know what's the long-term impact of this medicine. I really don't know. All I'm going by is FDA's recommendation that this is a safety use. So here, I don't think, again, one of my arguments was, do we have the right as an entity to ask anyone to take vaccination? And my belief is we don't. So here Susan's point was, I'm not asking anyone to take vaccination, but as one of the tools in the toolbox as a layered risk mitigation. These are some of the terms we use many times in the last 3 weeks of discussions. So we want to incentivize with the hope that 1, 2, 3, 4 people or some number of people. So I at the end, I support this decision because of the impact, potential impact unvaccinated people can have. Again, please understand, I am not asking one person to vaccinate. I am not. It is totally up to you. Like I said, I have immediate family members who have not taken it. I have not able to convince them, so I'm not going to try to convince one person to take it. I am not. But from a town operation perspective, knowing that health and safety is the primary objective of responsibility of the town. And knowing that I need to support Susan and she needs staff to perform the job, I do support the incentive pay for a limited time as opposed to mitigation. Again, like I said, this is fully respect everybody's choice. It's your choice if you want or not. But I do believe in the benefit of it. Are there additional discussions? Mr. Egan, sir?
Well, Mayor, just in massaging through it more and good discussion by all tonight. Knowing that we've got deadlines built into this, realizing the depth of that deadline. I can go for this now under the risk aspect of it. I mean, I agree. There's still risk. Can you put that into a quadratic equation and come out with a decent number? You know, those are what actuaries are for. And I'm still not sure that they can come up with what this number is going to be. Again, I just was trying to play devil's advocate, but primarily the thing that got me in it was that more brought me over was the fact that we had deadlines against it, and it applied to all employees who had gotten the vaccination. I hate, I don't know, well, I'll just stop at that.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Council, are there additional discussions on this topic? Susan, additional comments you want to make? Okay. Now, time, I think it's I'm going to ask for a motion on item number 16.
Motion to approve item 16 as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Finch to approve item number 16 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Mr. Allen is absent. Moving on to Susan, can we go through the next two items quickly, or it takes a long time, or if we punt this to the later time?
On the next item, I'm happy to move it to a later agenda. There's nothing time sensitive. It's just an update. So if you'd like, I can move that. to
Council,
the-
are you okay with the tabling this and come back to the next time?
Yes, definitely.
Because we got an executive session and town manager performance evaluation after this. We need to talk, so I want to take time for that.
And then
So
the-
do I need a motion for that, Rachel? Can I have a motion to table item number 17?
Motion to table item 17.
Motion made by Mr. Ehrlich and second by Finch to table item number 17 until the, September 27th?
27th.
Okay. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Item number 18. That you,
on-
Ms. Guthrie?
Yes, sir. On the TAPE award, for those of you who are watching, the TAPE is actually the precursor to the Malcolm Baldrige Award. If you're not familiar with that, the Baldrige Award was established by the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Improvement Act of 1987. Program and award were named for Malcolm Baldrige, who served the United States Secretary of Commerce during the Reagan administration from 1981 until Baldridge's 1987 death. President George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, continued the program during his presidency, and it's continued on. And it really is to recognize highly performing organizations. Typically, it's in the private sector. There's been a few governments who've entered the program, and we are now one of those. Today, we submitted our first application for, it's called the Pioneer Award, which is really the first step in the whole process. And this is nothing about the award. It's about learning how to be a high-performing organization. So as you're going through these kind of gates, you're employing different techniques that are, best practices for great organizations. with the note that we got, Erica actually did the submission today after, the team is Charles, myself, Rachel, and Erica are the team who have all gone through training up to this point. And Erica submitted it today, and they said within 3 weeks, we'll have a feedback discussion with them to give us feedback on that level. And then that level becomes the base of our future applications. We anticipate that during September 2022, we will apply for the engagement level, which is the next level in the whole process. So as this year goes through, we're going to be working through the questions and making sure we have all of those systems in place that will make us eligible for that level. Happy to answer any
Susan, I'm very
questions.
pleased with the, that I applied for this one, working towards it. I only ask that we speed up the process, like I always said. But this is a great effort. Texas Award for Performance Excellence. I know Mr. Charles Anderson came from City of Irving, used to be a town attorney. They were one of the cities who got recognized for the Malcolm Baldwin National Quality Award. And I was very envious when I saw, I think the town manager, Joe Gonzalez, I think, he was receiving that award. I was very envious. It's what? Tommy Gonzalez. Really, really separates the town, right? It used to be manufacturing. Companies used to apply for this, then became schools and hospitals. Now the government entities start applying for this job. It's a really great effort. Council, any comments or questions? Charles, I don't need public comments on this one, do I? Okay. Okay, council, mayor and council request first. Susan, anything else? Okay, number 19, mayor and council request for future staff updates agenda items. Okay, if there are none, can I have a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to chapter 551, subchapter D of the government code, item number 20, section 551, OH from the Economic Development Project DC 221, personnel matters, town manager, annual review.
I'd like to make a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to chapter 551, subchapter D of the Texas Government Code.
Motion made by Mr. Mills, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Clark. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Time is 9:47. We are in executive session. Okay, are we ready to go? Okay, now time is 10:21. We are back in open session. Let me just get back my agenda. Give me 1 second here. So we have two items to make, actually one item to make a decision on. That's item number 22, section 551.087, economic development project DC2. Council, is there any motion with respect to that?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 21-40 as presented in executive session.
Second.
Is it 21-40? He's in charge tonight. All right, so motion made by Mr. Freeman to approve resolution 21-40. Who seconded it? Mr. Clark seconded it. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Council, let me make a couple of comments about the next item. That is the section 551.07 for personnel matters, town manager annual review. Susan has been with us, what, once 2 years now, Susan? Okay, so 2 years in February. 3 years in February. Okay, so every year we done 6 months review, then next year we done the annual review in the 1 month, 1 year. Then we decided to regularize her performance review the August, September timeframe. So this is her second year performance review. Susan, we compiled the comments from the council. I got to go through some more edits on that one. But I got to tell you that, council, I'm very pleased with your performance. Done a lot in terms of accomplishment in council strategy and vision executing it. And I asked Susan for a self-review, and she sent me 3 books of accomplishments, right? So I really appreciate your leadership here and continued communication and the work you do. We're very pleased. Council, additional comments for anybody?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in. I think that not only when you came along, but since then, the things we've done, we've tasked you with a lot. I mean, a lot. And throughout that time, you have generally not only done exactly what we asked, but done it quicker and more efficiently than we have asked. And I think that, keep up the good work. We really enjoy the work that you do for us. Thank you.
Whoop, sorry about that. Not what I wanted.
So, this last year has presented even more challenges, and I think you've proved how you stepped up to that. And so I would put us against any town and how you've been able to step up and challenge. I've often told people that my time on the council, you always look for those benchmark things where you make a difference. And I've constantly said that once we hired you, I could drop the mic and walk away and feel like that we did some great accomplishments. I mean, you look at all the things that have happened, from raising a police department to, we got a new fire station coming online. Just many, many things that you have accomplished, been challenged with, things nobody expected. And so just a great job. So thank you. Appreciate you.
Mr. Clark?
Susan, it's so happy you're here, and it's been a great 3 years, coming up on 3 years. You always go above and beyond and exceed expectations. So really appreciate all of your hard work. Really appreciate really enjoy working with you, and thank you for building such a great staff and a great support. And as everybody said, it's just you've done amazing stuff. Creating the police departments, and building, a fire station pretty soon. A lot of development. It's just a great town staff. So thank you very much.
I have really enjoyed working with you a lot. You make me laugh at times. You do a great job communicating. I don't have a lot to go off of benchmarking wise because you're my only town manager I've worked with, but it has been a real honor. And I hope all your direct reports and town staff hear this. But what I think is great about you is that you really care about your people. It reflects. You fight hard for them. I think that you basically want to be the leader that you would want to follow. That's good. Great to see. You got it.
Mr. Egan?
Well, man, on the totem pole here, thank you. We disagree. We also agree, because we will come to an agreement between the two of us when we do have conversation. And I think that's important, that we can come to that conclusion, because a lot of people, particularly myself, and I know I'm this way, I tick people off. But I do it because I've got an objective that is, and particularly in this chair, it's to do the right things for the people of the town. And not what happens over at 202 Barnes Bridge or 214 Magic or whatever the other address is. Thank you for what you do. I look forward to my remaining time on council of continuing to work with you to do the right things for this town. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
I
Go ahead.
just really want to thank the council. I mean, I really enjoy coming to work every day, and I feel like everyone we work with has the heart of servant leaders, and I'm very thankful for that. And I really enjoy our relationship between the council and the town manager, and really want to stress, I think that book of accomplishments for the last year, it said on the top of that list, town accomplishments. So it's never about me. It's about the team that I work with. And obviously none of it gets done if it's not for that team. So I just want to make sure credit gets placed where it should. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Again, it's you, it's the council, it's the staff, every one of you, a big part of it. Again, that's really way, right? The change is only as strong as the weakest link, right? And the goal is not having weak. So we continue to work on that one. So everybody. So with that, council, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Eldridge to adjourn. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Now time is 10:29. Meeting is adjourned.